We're going to hear from the Fighting Irish. So University of Notre Dame studios, a little different at university, but working from some of the what we would put into kind of the vertical of media and entertainment. We have Scott Rinehart, who is Director of Broadcast and Streaming Technologies, and Ian Owens, who is our Digital Media Asset Program Manager there at Notre Dame Studios. So Scott, I think you're going to speak first. We will give the floor to you.
Make sure we've got Ian in here. Let's make sure we got Ian in here, okay, before I get going.
Okay, good. I hear and see you well.
Everybody hear me?
And
okay.
We hear Ian.
Okay, great. I just want to make sure. Bob, I really appreciate the opportunity to represent Notre Dame Studios in this event today.
Yeah.
I've got a fairly long history with Spectra, and I really appreciate everything that they have done to help us as we're trying to figure out how we're going to store more stuff with less disk, which has always been the problem. Because I've usually been in a broadcasting type production environment, and the problem there is that we can never provide enough disk space to producers and production people. They want everything online, ready all the time. And as Alan was just talking about, data growth is just not stopping. I mean, every time we think, oh, they're not going to make any bigger files, all of a sudden a phantom camera goes out and shoots 20 gigs every 10 seconds at 10,000 frames a second, which is just a crazy amount of footage that's coming in. And the disk space, we had to come up with a way. The challenge to us was how do we contain the amount of footage that they're bringing in, storing it online, but not having it right there on disk, because we just can't afford to buy that amount of disk. So the answer was tape. One of the things that makes us different here is that this all started, I was in athletics before I came over into ND Studios, which is part of the IT department. And within athletics, we had this problem, but our CTO at the time, Ron Kramer, was a very forward-thinking individual, and he's like, well, shouldn't we buy this for the whole organization? Like, sure, as long as we get what we need, sure, if we can share that cost, that's fabulous. So that's how we went into this with a mindset, which is very different than most other universities, where we'll make a purchase but figure out how do we leverage this against the whole of the organization. So what you're going to see today is Ian's going to show you our workflow for Fighting Irish Media, which is the media part of the athletics department. But this workflow is now applying to other parts of campus. We have the Grotto network going. We have our marketing and communications group in. Athletic teams are starting to come in. Notre Dame International is managing their content this way. So this is really in the last 2 years, I guess, Ian, we've seen the vision that we've had from 10 years ago has finally come true, which we're very, very excited about. So with that, just leave it to Ian to show you how we're using Black Pearl and our asset management system to make this whole thing go.
All right, cool. And I think we should be showing my little title slide here. So that's the intention, at least. Scott, that what you saying?
Yep.
What you're saying?
That's what I'm saying. I just want to make sure, Bob.
Absolutely.
We're a little inexperienced with GoToWebinar, so we're learning on the fly here, but that's okay. As Scott was saying, I got into this 2.5 years ago. I was fortunate enough to get brought in, and Notre Dame Studios was forward-thinking enough, in my humble opinion, since they created a job for me, to really take asset management really seriously and have somebody focus on this full time. And so that's where I came in, and I spent the first many months getting conversant with all these different pieces that we have. Scott and I are really fond of talking about how we kind of built this, and he built most of it, but as we built this in a piece-by-piece system where it's not like we just said it's one system and we're just going to take everything. We really wanted to find what worked best in every single spot, and that's where Black Pearl came in as a really top-of-the-line way to manage our archiving needs.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Just real quick, Ian, the thing for everybody to think about with this is that it's very modular, what we have built here. And we did do best of breed in each position we have built it in such a way that we can take out a piece of it if we need to later and plug another piece in if something down the road is a better fit for what we're trying to accomplish here at the university. All you.
That's right. Cool. So now we're going to get started with my video here, and I'm just going to show my screen again. And there we go. And hopefully we are seeing this here video. All right.
Yeah, we see
So
it.
the first thing we want to start with is just kind of looking at what this looks like. In our CatDV environment, we have this Black Pearl panel that holds all this useful metadata. Of course, archive status is where it all begins. We want to know what we've done, whether we've sent it to the archive or not. Also, which bucket we've sent it to. In this case, this is MAM Athletics Original. And we have a little status field, restore complete. I'm going to scroll down and show a copy complete so that you can kind of see right down here. There we go. So this says copy complete. So it kind of tells you a little bit about what's going on, where the file is, the asset is in the process. And we also have this super nifty history field, which I've really come to love, that shows me whether it's been purged, whether it's been copied, whether there was some sort of an error, something, I sent it to the wrong bucket, you name it, it's all happened. So that's just kind of showing around the panel. Now we're going to get into actually archiving, which in this situation, I'm going to show how we would manually archive. In this case, we have all these files that say pending. I'm going to change the archive status manually to sent to archive, since that's what I'm doing. And then I just do the send to archive. I publish and save, make sure everything's caught up and at its most, accurate recent portrayal. I choose my bucket. I hit submit. And after a few moments, we are going to have our sent 11 files, initiated transfer of 11 files. There we go. And now I know if I go up here, or I can either right click and go to the View Black Pearl Archive Service job queue, and open that up, and it's going to say, okay, and I've cleared this out in this scenario. So normally this is absolutely loaded with stuff. But here we can see this Claypool.mp4 plus 10 files. Thanks to Chase Claypool for being really good with the Steelers. So that's a really nice, timely reference now. But
nice.
We bounce over and show kind of, this is our worker node. So that was manually archiving. This is more of a, we want to archive automatically, and if that sent to archive field is empty, it just picks it up in the worker node. This is obviously preferable to us doing it manually. I do quite a bit of things manually, just working on them, but this is great how it automated picks it up. Obviously there's a lot of field reading and all sorts of things that go into the server query, but in this case it picks it right up. And if I go back to the catalog here, see these are all empty. The archive status is empty. If I refresh the page, they all say pending now, which is pretty nice. And then if I refresh again, we can see some are already starting to send, like we saw it was running over there on the worker. We can see that these are now running. I have a nice little color-coded field that tells me if something is running. Here's some more popping in. Again, it shows me the bucket, and it says copy queued. Now, that is where I want to pause for just a second and talk about purging. There we go. So purging is a process after we have archived. We go ahead and we purge it, as you saw maybe on that.
And there's two things that are happening when we send it to Black Pearl based on the rule sets that are built for the particular client and the type of file that it is. We'll determine, is it just going through Black Pearl to the T950, or is it going through Black Pearl and going to whichever part of Amazon the client's willing to pay for? So that's a really important piece of this, is that each client has their very own, we don't really care about going to Amazon for it. We just want to leave it on tape.
Right. Well, and you guys might have seen in the panel there, and you'll see when we pop back into the video, there's an expiration date field, and that's how we do that. We set that upon ingest so that we know when this, or rather the producers, most importantly, they know when this file is going to disappear on them. Seems that no matter how many times we tell them that, it's a surprise every time, but that's okay, because once it purges and removes the file from the SAN, and we've had to really talk about vocabulary here, because purging and deleting are kind of two different ideas. Purging means by nature it must be archived before CatDV will run the purge, so it checks with Black Pearl. It's very paranoid. Paranoia is a good thing here. And it checks and makes sure that it is archived before it does anything with it. Otherwise, I get an error on my automation engines. So that's kind of a quick note on purging and what happens then. So if I go back and I show my screen.
And that's where the key piece of this is how the two pieces of software are tied together to make an engine, I guess, for lack of a better phrase.
Right. So if I start playing again, we'll see here. So now we see up here a purge has occurred. We have the mezzanine purged here. So these files you see are offline over here on the left, the little red dots. The proxies are still online, but hey, we want the high-res stuff, right? So let's say one of our producers is clicking around. They're going to open the proxy and say, oh, I really love this practice footage. I'm going to use this for something. I need to restore the high-res. All they have to do with a click, right-click, they go down to Schedule Restore from Black Pearl. They can also do it up here in this other menu. We've got a couple of options. I like to right-click, but we have options. And then as you see, very quickly, it initiates the transfer of the file. And if I open the job queue here that we were looking at a second ago, you would see that. But I wanted to move ahead here to, now we have restored it. We have a Do Not Purge button, which is always, we're checking to make sure it's not being abused. But then that stops something from being purged, again, using metadata. But let's say now that, as is most often the case, a producer wants to bring back a bunch of stuff. So we're going to click on a bunch of these files. Again, we see they're offline. We can select as many as we want. We know that it's purged. And I have created this Operation Tomato action. Don't ask, but Operation Tomato is kind of a project we've had here with asset management. And in
Great
this case,
story for another time.
that's another presentation. But in this case, we can restore the assets from there. And it allows us to restore a whole bunch without bogging down the machine too. So if they have a bunch of stuff they want to restore, sometimes hundreds of clips, it can go here to the worker rather than going to the, rather than sitting on the desktop client and bogging that machine down. So you can see it here, it's running that action. And, oh, it's already done. It took about 10.9 seconds, so that's great. Scott, do you want to talk real quick about why this is useful for producers compared to what we had in the past?
Sure. Prior to getting Black Pearl in, one of our main challenges was how do we manage the content that's leaving the SAN and getting it back without producers abusing the system or having to train everybody new when they came in for a complicated process. So we had a third-party piece of software that was all manual. And when we were archiving to it or saving to that, saving the tape before, it was essentially just grabbing a file or a folder and saying archive it. And then when it came time to bring it back, all the producers had to send either myself an email or to Ian an email and say, here are the 100 clips that I need for my piece by tomorrow. So we would have to take hours out of our day to go hunt and peck and find it and bring it back. And needless to say, that was a big waste of our time. So one of the big value propositions that Black Pearl gave us was the ability to just let the producers do it. And putting that power into their hands has really proven to be a great time saver for everybody because they can grab the 100 clips, right-click, hit restore, go get a cup of coffee, chat, do whatever they want to do, and by the time they get back, the files are there and they're ready to edit. Ian?
Yep, and we don't have to monitor it, which is really nice. So, and answer the never-ending questions of, is it back? Is it back? Well, is it back? What do you see? So, all right, let's get back into this real quick.
Seeing is believing.
Show back again. I'm going to hit play again. But so now we're talking about, okay, this is a really fun thing for us to talk about because we just got started with this. What happens when you've archived too much stuff? And in this case, you can see we've got a bunch of duplicate files that I've highlighted. And I just want to show you a kind of a really new thing that we love here about this Black Pearl integration. If I'm in the Black Pearl dashboard here, couldn't think of the word, you can see we have all sorts of information on our tapes and what have you, but in our buckets, you can see we have some quite large buckets, of course, associated with athletics. In this scenario, we're going to look at this mezzanine bucket. So if I go back, you see this is MAM Athletics Mezzanine. This is our working group, and they have all these duplicate files, garbage files that are archived because somebody dropped them in twice or whatever happened. We have 915.3 terabytes in there right now, and man, we don't need all those terabytes. We have quite a few duplicates like this. So what can we do? We just got this tool in, and it's been awesome. I've said it 3 times already. I'll keep saying it. So what I do is I scroll down. I make sure I've got everything selected I want, nothing that I don't want selected, and then I say delete archive files from Black Pearl. It gives me this great paranoid box that says, so do you want to delete the local media? In this case, yes, they're dupes. Do you want to delete the proxies? Yes, they also are duplicated. And then finally, it's talking about this will irrevocably delete all I love it. And it says, are you sure you want to do this in capital letters? Wonderful stuff. I say yes. Then I go back and I'm going to watch this 915.3. And also on our SAN, if I bounce over to our SAN system, you can see in our top line there on this FIDM SAN, we've got 148.8 terabytes online at the moment. So I want to show how this actually does clear that up some and save us some money because you're deleting from the Black Pearl archive and from the SAN itself. And after a period of time, we get to where it's
Amazon, it'll get rid of it in Amazon as well.
That's right. It'll delete the 349 clips there. There goes the, if I refresh, it gets rid of the, or it tells me it got rid of the proxies as well. You see everything's red now, all those trash files. So now I go back here, I want to look. We went from 148.8 to 148.1. This wasn't a live environment, so I have to say this, there was other factors involved, but we also went from 915.3 to 915.0. I mean, when you're in an environment that you are bringing back or you are archiving everything, this is so important because we don't do any culling on the front end. Most of our customers don't. You can see here, we don't do any culling on the front end. They just archive it and worry about it later. Well, financially, this has become a big deal. So to be able to delete it and clear out that that catalog, and now you see, okay, wonderful. Now it's all nice and clean. I save everything, and it's a nice, usable catalog again. And that is just such a money saver. We're talking, Scott and I have run tests on this, and we have seen just terabytes upon terabytes. I don't even know what the number is. It's got to be in the dozens of terabytes that we have out of that 915. It's got to be dozens of terabytes that are just not needed.
Well, people,
so to be able to
photographers shoot the ground, right? When they're running around on the football field or at a basketball game, they hit the record button and record stuff, and everybody's in a hurry, so it just gets thrown on. And one of the early challenges when Ian got on board was, what do we do afterwards? And so I said, hey, we got Black Pearl, that's running great. And then at IBC one year, I got Hussein together with the Cat TV CEO, and they had a conversation. And that was how this whole plug-in happened. It was just kind of an organic, hey, we got a problem that we need to solve. So Hussein sat me down, I think it was with David, and we talked about it. He said, yeah, I think we can do that, but here are the commands we need, yada, yada, yada. Way over my head. But ultimately, the smart people got together and figured out a solution to the problem, which I think was wonderful, and I really do appreciate everybody's efforts on that, because that really was one of the bigger questions. Archiving this stuff was actually pretty straightforward, right, Ian?
Yeah.
It was getting rid of the stuff that you don't want after a year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. So.
And I remember when we brought that up, both sides, both Squarebox and Spectra, were like, what? This is a bad idea. Are you sure?
Something?
Yeah, but hey, we tried to explain it. You know, anybody who's worked with, you know, a bunch of producers anywhere knows that mistakes happen. I mean, we're all human. I make mistakes sometimes even, not that I wanted to say that in front of my boss too much, but sometimes you got to change a folder that was mislabeled. So, I mean, we're trying to build a culture of consistency here. And if we have something that's inconsistent with our tri-codes or whatever the system may be, if we want to change that, we need to go back and delete the thing that was archived with the wrong folder structure and with the wrong naming convention. So it's been a very useful tool. We haven't had any catastrophes yet because it's so paranoid, and we're trying to stay as manual as we can. Those delete the local files, I try not to use those really. I try to just use this to delete the archive, and then if I want to delete the local files, I do that manually. But it gives us a lot of power, and it's a lot of asset managing power that we make sure that we are wielding responsibly.
And the good thing now is we're moving out across campus and talking to other constituents. We now have a really good story to tell them as we're going out. You know, talking to the School of Architecture about what they need. They have a lot of files that they need to get under some sort of management control. And we're going to bring them on board and looking forward to having them part of this. And we'll see where it goes after that. Bob?
All right, outstanding presentation, guys. Thank you. A couple of questions came in. Scott, the first one came in when you made a comment about taking a modular approach so you could change things in and out as time changed. And the question was, in this modular approach, do you worry about compatibility? So I guess with different formats or things of that nature. Any concerns there? Or?
All the time. But what we're working with is trying to find stuff that's as open as possible so that we can make those transfers as we need to. It's the nice thing about Black Pearl is that it sits in the middle, and asset management systems can sit on top of it, and it doesn't matter what the system is. But Black Pearl is really our master. It's the central server of all the information as to where all the assets are on the back end on LTO or up in Amazon.
Okay, and I'm going to jump forward then to a question that, since you mentioned that, because a comment came in that said, it looks like Black Pearl is very integrated into your MAM. How much effort was that?
Well, on our part, not a whole lot.
I knew you were going to say that, Scott. Well, we asked.
That's the way you want it.
That's not totally true. We didn't do any coding. We just provided, the way we work best here is Squarebox would write something, try it, send it over. We would give it a run, provide feedback. And that probably took, what do you think, Ian, 6 months? Once we really got going on it.
Yeah. I mean, we gave as much time as we could. I think being flexible was a big part of that on our end, because Scott and I know this is complex stuff. And again, just to reiterate a point, I think that's why it's useful that Notre Dame Studios has me in this role, because I'm able to kind of manage that and keep up with it, because Scott's got a million things going on, and so it's been really useful, I hope, that I'm able to just kind of keep up with the support tickets, keep in touch without being, harassing. You don't want to be a harassing customer, but keep in touch and like, hey, how are we doing? Oh, what are we looking? Oh, okay, that's cool. It's coming in a couple of weeks. Awesome. As long as I can go to Scott, and Scott and I can go to our bosses and say, hey, we've got a plan. We're working on stuff. We try to be really flexible with both Squarebox and Spectra and whoever else we're working with, because we know this is hard stuff, but it's so worthwhile what we're doing. And we think that that's what the two groups said to us is, hey, actually we could see where this could be helpful for other people now that you've brought this crazy idea of deleting stuff that you've worked so hard to save. But
right, and I guess once that integration is done, it can apply to other people using those applications.
That's right, and it's got such wider application now, which is great. But the other thing, kind of separate from the Spectra discussion, though, Bob, I want to say to folks is that it's really important to be able to put a person such as Ian in charge of this to where that's their focus. It's not a secondary part of their job. It's not, oh, when you get to it, handle it. It's, this is your job. And when he has that focus, when somebody has that focus, it really helps make projects go further, faster. Because if he wasn't here and it was on my shoulders to have done all that work, we'd still be talking about it.
Right, right. Power in a village. Next question. What editing format are you using? Avid, Adobe, etc. What codec?
So we have, yeah, we're mostly an Adobe Premiere house. We have a few Final Cut guys, but that does change between our customers. But in this scenario that we showed, this was for Fighting Irish Media, our athletics video folks. They use Adobe Premiere almost exclusively, and their format is Apple ProRes 422HQ. That's their native format that we transcode. That's part of that worker automation stuff with CatDV. We transcode everything to that mezzanine format, that standard format. So we have that. Then there's an H.264 proxy that you saw the little video of too. So those are our standard right now.
Gotcha. And last question we'll be able to have time to take. If I want to use S3 instead of second copy of LTO tape, how much cheaper, costlier is it? And Scott, you mentioned that by S3, I think they mean just going to the cloud or AWS. You mentioned that that wasn't a route that you guys went. Did you evaluate that on a kind of cost basis? Or? Well,
it depends on the client to make that decision. The S3 copy is strictly for disaster recovery. It's not a production copy because of the egress costs out of Amazon. And right now, especially over the last 8 months or so, watching expenses has become very, very key part of the business now. Everybody's very, very aware of those costs now. And it's having it up there as a DR copy is fabulous for us because then nobody has to manage tapes coming and going and where are they and exercising them or setting up another T950, which I know Bob would like for us to do somewhere, but
never hurts.
Yeah, it never hurts. But the tape is the nearline storage and anything in Amazon is deep Glacier, and that's where we're moving everything to when that integration is ready to go.
Yeah, all of my customers or users on campus have a tape copy, and that's what they use to restore because we do have limited, we have hundreds of terabytes, but it's limited online storage. And so we have to keep churning that, and that's where our workflow comes in a lot. So everybody uses tape for that quick, free-ish, but every time you run the restore is free. So they have that for that. And as Scott said, AWS, whether it's Glacier or Deep Glacier, we're hoping to get to Deep Glacier really soon. That's disaster recovery in 2.5 plus, when did we start this? Over 2 years. I haven't had anybody restore anything from AWS. We haven't had to. So that's the dream.
Right. Great. Yep. All right, guys. Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Ian. I appreciate your time and a little view into what you guys are doing out there.